physics was known for quite a while. And so I think it hasn't really changed our understanding of the quantum world work.
Job with the James Webb Space Telescope was to look as far back in time as we could to see the universe as it was young.
Changing the basic attitude about what education is for and what it needs to be.
Biology, medical studies, they make great progress.
Hello and welcome, I'm Ellie Richardson and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. The 72-year-old former Labour minister and UK ambassador to the US has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Police have said it comes after allegations has been sent. US President Donald Trump threatened nations with punishing tariff hikes if they play games after his trade policy setback before the Supreme Court. President Donald Trump has denied reports that the top US military officer has flagged the risks of major operations against Iran, saying Washington would easily defeat Tehran in any conflict. Ukraine is marking the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion with a show of solidarity from its staunchest allies and no immediate end in sight to Europe's biggest war since World War II. The United States is holding meetings in Geneva with Russian and Chinese delegations about nuclear weapons after the final treaty restrictions Washington and Moscow's nuclear deployment expired. Mexico has said deployed 10,000 troops to quell clashes sparked by the killing of the country's most wanted drug lord that claimed dozens of lives. News of his death triggered spasms of violence, with cartel members blocking roads in 20 states and torching vehicles and businesses. South Korea's former president Yoon Suk-yeol has filed an appeal against an insurrection conviction stemming from his 2024 martial law declaration. A landmark social media addiction trial resumed, with a YouTube executive insisting that the Google-owned company's aim was to give people value, not hook them on harmful binge viewing. And for your top story this hour, President Trump has issued a stark warning to Iran, stating it will be a very bad day for the country and its people if a deal is not struck to curtail its nuclear program. While emphasizing his preference for diplomacy, he also made it clear that military action remains on the table. The US is preparing for further talks in Geneva later this week with Iran as tensions escalate. Meanwhile, US military assets continue to amass in the Middle East, with some experts warning that Iran could soon have enough material to produce nuclear bombs. Both sides have signaled that war remains a real possibility if negotiations fail. We're now being joined by Adrian Calamel, who's a fellow Arabian Peninsula Institute and terrorism scholar, joining us from New York. Thank you so much for joining us here again on NewsX World. Thank you. Is framing the outcome in terms of impact on its people a strategic shift or a continuation of pressure tactics in diplomacy?
Well, first of all, it's good morning to you, Ellie, and it's a pleasure to meet you. Good morning to your viewers, and that's a good question. that was a rather odd statement, I would say, by President Trump. That would be horrible for its people, because I say it's odd because war is horrible. And any type of military action, there's going to be casualties. But what the U.S., I would believe, is planning is somewhat limited in that capacity. They just want to own the skies. They're worried about the nuclear facilities. They're worried about the ballistic missile launchers. They're worried about the IRGC bases that suppress the population. Compared to Now, saying that, compared to war, compared to what these people have been going through for the past 47 years, 48 years, it's been horrible. They've been living under complete oppression, and we've saw, and what, 40 days ago, they slaughtered close to 40,000 people. So it's the Iranian people need liberty. But the U.S. needs to be calculated about this, and I think that's more of the message. I think the Iranian people understand Donald Trump, and the Iranian people actually like Donald Trump.
And could this kind of rhetoric question strengthen the U.S. negotiating position, or risk alienating potential partners in the talk?
Yeah, well, here's really, I mean, when we break it all down, both sides are never going to meet. The regime insists on being able to enrich and reprocess. And if they do that, then they would be the first country that would not possess a nuclear weapon. Every country that does that owns a nuclear weapon, yet they say it's for peaceful purposes. And then on the Trump side, they're saying under no circumstances can you do that. And there's also a couple other things you need to do. You need to curtail your ballistic missiles to roughly 300 kilometers. You need to stop your regional funding to the proxies such as the Houthis. And the regime's never going to meet these demands. They're not going to meet the nuclear demands. And that's what the regime wanted to do, was reduce any type of negotiations to the nuclear file. So everybody would, because nuclear war is ugly. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrific to even think that something could happen like that. But they wanted to reduce it to that nastiness of the nuclear file. So everybody would look away from the human rights abuses, the terrorism, the oppression of the population. But now they're cornered. They're in a box where the nuclear issue is a real deal. It's a problem. Now they're not, as Witkoff said, they're not a week away from a bomb. That's not true. But realistically, they're about 18 months to 2 years away from reconstituting their nuclear program. And Trump knows that sometime he's going to have to go back in his presidency. And within a year, he probably could lose the House, both the Senate and the House. So that would put additional pressure on any type of action he wants to take.
And how might Iran's leaders interpret and respond to a statement like this from the threats given by Trump? And how do you think they're going to try and go against this and try and protect the country and its population?
Well, I want to first address that. They're really not addressing their population. They're killing their population. 40,000 of them just, when they shut down the internet. And that was just, a little over a month ago. So that's one part of it. How the regime officials are going to view these statements. If you look at the language, some of Khamenei's sermons, some of the words that have been coming out, there's somewhat of an expectation that war is coming, that they know that it's coming. But there's this gamesmanship right now with the Islamic Republic wants to string out negotiations as long as possible and try to get a deal or try to face some type of logjam. Maybe the U.S. Congress gets involved and stymies Trump. Who knows what could happen? And what Trump wants to do is make sure that this regime, does not have the nuclear capacity, and two, that he creates a little space for the people on the ground who did rise up today on day 41 after the official mourning period and they were spread across the universities of Iran protesting against this government.
Thank you, Adrian, but please don't go too far, as we will be back with you very shortly. Thank you. Some breaking news now. Peter Mandelson, who's the former UK ambassador to the US, has been released on bail following his arrest over allegations of misconduct linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Police are investigating claims that Mandelson passed sensitive government information to Epstein more than 15 years ago. Mandelson is not facing sexual misconduct allegations. His arrest follows similar charges against Prince Andrew earlier this week, intensifying the focus on high-profile figures connected to Epstein. The investigation has drawn significant scrutiny towards UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, whose appointment of Mandelson has caused political fallout. Meanwhile, Mandelson's resignation from the House of Lords earlier this month adds further controversy to the case. Peter Mandelson, the former UK ambassador to the United States, was arrested on Monday, February the 23rd, on suspicion of misconduct in the public office, following an investigation into his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The arrest comes after a criminal inquiry was launched earlier this month, prompted by communications between Mandelson and Epstein, which were handed over to authorities by Prime Minister Keir Starmer's government. Mandelson was dismissed from his high-profile diplomatic role in September 2025 when his close relationship with Epstein became public. The police statement confirmed that Mandelson has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, particularly regarding the sharing of sensitive government information. However, it is important to note that the arrest does not imply any guilt. Meanwhile, Mandelson's arrest follows similar charges against Prince Andrew, further intensifying the scrutiny of high-profile individuals connected to Epstein. Furthermore, Mandelson's resignation from the House of Lords earlier this month has added to the controversy as political fallout continues to mount. Regardless of the political fallout, updates on the investigation are expected in the coming weeks. As the case develops, Mandelson's release on bail means the investigation will continue while the legal process unfolds. We are now being joined by Adrian. Thank you for joining us back here on NewsX World. Thank you. Obviously, we saw a similar situation at the end of last week with former Prince Andrew's arrest and now Peter Mandelson's arrest. How could this investigation affect public trust in British political and diplomatic institutions, especially when such senior figures are involved?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ellie, and it definitely erodes the trust. There's this concern that individuals that would previously be considered untouchable have been involved in, well, in Prince Andrew's case, I think we can say there's sexual misconduct there, but it's interesting that both of them have been charged on, revealing business. I don't know if it's lobbying, trade secrets, what they're passing on specifically, but it's related to moving documents to a third party, to a third country, to try and broker deals. It's starting to look more and more like top leaders in countries were compromised by a foreign government. We still don't know who that foreign government, and I'll be honest, I have not read, there's so much in the Epstein files and there's so many names. I just haven't had the time to go through it. But right now it looks like they're going after people that it's like going after Al Capone. They didn't go after him for running liquor. They went after him for tax evasion. Right now they're going after individuals who passed on, privileged information to third parties that should never have happened, because that information goes to Epstein and then it goes to someone else.
And what does Peter Mandelson's arrest say about how the UK are treating like alleged links to Epstein's network, and how do you think around the world are going to take it? Do you think countries global are going to follow the steps that the UK are taking, arresting, I mean, a former ambassador and a lord and a former prince?
I really hope so. I think there's a level of accountability here now that we're seeing from Great Britain that we're not seeing from any other government right now in vis-a-vis the Epstein files. So in that respect, I think the British are doing their job, and they will continue to do their job. They're the only ones that have really kind of gone after this and are starting to set an example. My hope is that the same happens in the United States. Now, I will say that I believe Bill Clinton was subpoenaed to show up before the House or something, and he refused to show up. So there is some pressure in the United States, but there's one thing about putting out subpoenas. There's another thing of actually going out and arresting the individual or dragging them into and questioning them about these dealings. And I think that's what the UK is doing, and what we're not seeing from anyone else, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Adrian, for joining us here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you. Mexican authorities tracked Nemesio Oseguera to his hideout in Tapala, Jalisco, after a tip about his personal life. They killed the notorious cartel leader known as El Mencho in the raid. Violence that followed left at least 62 people dead, including 25 National Guard members and 34 suspected gangsters. Asijing loyalists and set 85 roadblocks across more than a dozen states. President Claudia Sheinbaum has said the situation is calming. The US provided intelligence but did not take part in the operation. Let's listen in to what the Mexican president had to say.
Todas las operaciones se realizan por las fuerzas federales. No hay participación en la operación de fuerzas de Estados Unidos. Lo que hay es mucho intercambio de información. Como lo hemos dicho aquí varias veces, el entendimiento con Estados Unidos se basa fundamentalmente en intercambio de inteligencia de información. En este caso, hubo información que prestó el gobierno de los Estados Unidos, incluso ellos sacaron un comunicado.
We are now being joined by Colonel Sanjeet Saroy, who's an international relations and defence expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. Does this outcome signal a shift in Mexico's strategy against powerful cartels, or is it an isolated tactical success?
Good morning, LA. Thank you very much for having me on your channel and discussing something which has happened about 2 days back. And it is very, very important. And as far as your question is concerned, it is very pertinent question. And I think this incident is not in isolation, because since Mr. Donald Trump has come and taken the office, in February 25, he had this declared this foreign terrorist organization, that is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Since then, they have been building pressure, and after Venezuela episode, the Mexico was warned by Donald Trump, and he has said that the cartels are running Mexico. Since then, Mexico government has been after the cartels, and this, I think, is not an isolated incident. Now they are going to go after all the cartels which are running in the Mexico, because the reason is very simple. Mr. Donald Trump has told them that unless you stop this cartel business, and because the lot of drugs are coming from Mexico to America, especially the fentanyl and cocaine. So until this is stopped, and this is the top priority of American president. So I think that now the Mexican government will go after all the cartels who are running this drug trafficking in the country itself, and also exporting it to USA.
And What impact could the death of a cartel boss have on a local community for security and the broader balance of power among rival criminal groups?
Well, after death of El Mencho, as he is famously called, otherwise he is Esguerra. Now, after his death, there is a vacuum as far as this cartel is concerned, that is Jalisco New Generation Cartel. We don't know who is the successor because this man was running this cartel for last 17, 18 years. So who is the successor, we are not aware. And then there is a opposite cartel, which is Sinaloa cartel. They also may be in thick soup because they are already having the internal problem. So I think this violence which has taken place, it is only a temporary, and the way the Mexican government has deployed their security forces, I think in a day or two, things will be normal. And this will carry on with other cartels also. And I think because the Mexican government is trying to appease Mr. Donald Trump, because they know that this drug trafficking is his priority. And if they don't do their homework correctly, then I think Mr. Donald Trump will go after them very badly, as he had done with Venezuela.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev Savory, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. The US has accused foreign malicious actors of hacking into Chilean systems, prompting visa restrictions for 3 Chilean officials. US Ambassador Brandon Judd revealed the attack targeted telecommunication firms and construction company, compromising sensitive information. Despite providing details to Chilean authorities, the US claims no response was received to prevent further breaches. Judd expressed concern over Chile's ability to protect shared data, raising questions about the future of bilateral information sharing agreements. The situation has also led to fears about the potential impact on Chile's participation in the US visa waiver program. Let's listen to what the US Ambassador to Chile, Brandon Judd, had to say.
Lo que pasó es que estas personas tomaron decisiones y las decisiones que tomaron las personas tienen que tener consecuencias si son decisiones que pueden dañar a este país, al pueblo chileno, y también si pueden dañar la región that we share regionally, and if it will harm the United States. These were the people that took those decisions. These are the people that visas sank.
We have some more breaking news coming in for you now. A Delhi-bound air ambulance with 7 people on board crashed into the Jharkhand's Chhattisgarh district after taking off from Ranchi on Monday evening. The Beechcraft King Air BE-9L, operated by Redbird Airways, lost contact with air traffic control about 20 minutes after departure. Reports have confirmed all 7 on board, including 2 crew members, were killed. The flight was en route to Delhi, carrying a patient who had been treated for severe burns in Ranchi. The crash occurred near Samaria, and the district's search and rescue teams are at the site. The cause of the crash remains unclear, with weather conditions suspected to be a factor. An investigation is underway. And next up, Apple is moving some Mac Mini production to the United States. The new manufacturing line will start later this year at Foxconn facility in North Houston. This comes as part of Apple's largest US investment, following last August announcement to spend $600 billion over 4 years. The decision follows pressure from President Trump, who had treated a 25% tariff on products made overseas. Apple says production will continue in Asia while the Houston facility meets local demand. The company also plans a new training center to boost advanced manufacturing skills. Apple has a mixed track record with US investments, but says confidence in long-term Mac Mini demand is high. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.